And one of the important things here to remember when people are going through bad times, as each and every one of us does numerous times in our lives, it's not what happens to us, it's how we deal with that, and it's our mental attitude. By changing our mental attitude to ourselves, we change the world around us. And that might sound like a bold statement, but it's absolutely true. So we are creative beings. We're not here by chance. We're not here by some random process or accident. We are here by design. We are part of this ongoing project, and we can choose to participate in that if we want to.
Welcome, everyone, and happy Christmas. It is That Death Show's Christmas special. We're here in our jammies, kind of. My name is Anne, and with me, as always, is the beloved, talented, esoteric author. He's a filmmaker, he's a speaker, he's a musician. Ladies and gentlemen, Tim Wyatt. Tim, happy Christmas, sweetheart. How are you?
And the same to you, Anne, and the same to all our viewers and listeners, because it is a special time of the year, and whatever your persuasion, everybody likes to look back on the old year and look forward to what's lying ahead.
And that's going to be the theme of part of our theme today. I also have to, before we go anywhere, this is cooking in the background. We didn't mention it last time, but it is officially born. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Tim has a brand new Substack. It is called The Esoteric Perspective. There will be links attached to this. Please, 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 it goes hand in hand with That Death Show. And Tim, if you can, seriously, you've been writing since you were in the womb. Can you tell us a little bit about what we can expect on The Esoteric Perspective, your Substack?
Well, over the last 10 or 15 years, especially since I got out of the horrors of mainstream journalism, I've been writing for a number of magazines and sites around the world. So the idea is to bring a lot of this material together, different articles on different mainly esoteric things, but also including one or two other things as well. And I'll also be, for the first time, publishing 3 short novellas on the site, which are all quite different from each other. One's called Brothers on the Shining Path, which is meant to be amusing. There's one called Mr. T and I, which is actually written from the perspective of my cat, Electra. And the third one is a novella about reincarnation, appropriately enough, called Roads Reaching an End. So that's all that's happening at the moment, and I'm trying to retrieve all this stuff from numerous different sources at the moment. We won't bore the viewers and listeners with all the technicalities of that.
Well, there are technicalities, but they certainly won't be bored when they subscribe to you at The Esoteric Perspective. It's on Substack. Check it out. I'm going to make sure you're linked up. And Tim, we want to give a very loving, happy Christmas to our loyal viewers and listeners. We're slowly growing. I can see the graph is going up, but it's a lot of work. We want to say thank you so much, though, to John G. at Theosophy Station, and of course, Jonathan of Oak Apple Studios. Tim, he did the musical tribute where he played the drums, he sang and played guitar. He's looking forward to playing guitar someday with you. He did a little homage, if you will. Is that the right word, to That Death Show? And thank you, thank you, thank you. They also donate to our cause. And remember, it is a very small team here at That Death Show. It is minute. It's tiny. It's just us. So thank you very much for your support. If you can, please, please, please like, subscribe, share, comment, rate, review. Every little bit helps get these ancient teachings, these ageless teachings out into the world where they are so desperately needed. Every tiny little bit counts, and we need you as part of our community. Thank you so much. Also, we will be having near-death experiencers coming on the show as well, but not just to tell their story. We're going to go ahead and talk about the esoteric science that's involved, because in the genuine near-death experiences, you will see it's synonymous with perennial philosophy. We're going to be talking about that. So I wanted to let you know what's happening. So today, Tim, I'm very excited. We're going to talk about proofs of reincarnation and also the importance of the winter solstice, which just happened on Saturday. So we're right smack dab in the heart of the darkness of winter, but it's a good thing because the new year is being reborn just like we do. So Tim, to begin, may I ask you, I wanted to talk about the cycles, this winter solstice, spring, summer, winter, fall, or spring, damn it. spring, summer, fall, winter. So this great cosmic significance. Tell us, what does esoteric science say about the winter solstice and the importance of it?
Well, it's been important to virtually every single culture in every different era of history. Why? Because on the 21st, sometimes the 22nd, that is the solstice, the time when the old year ends and the new year begins. And there's a 3 or 4 day period when planets appear to go backwards. They don't. It's just how they appear. So that period of time between the 21st and the 25th, 26th of December is always a pivotal point. And it's about rebirth. You look back on the old year, you reflect on it, you look forward to the new year. So it's a reincarnation of the year. So I thought today it would be appropriate to talk about something which is very central to our work, which is the notion of reincarnation. And we'll look at some of the evidence which suggests this might be the case.
It's perfect. It is a perfect show for today. I did want to ask, because of the pagan celebration and Christ's birthday and going back to all the way through, is that why do you think that this is part of that, this birthday being celebrated of the avatars at this time in winter? Is it because of the sacredness of the winter solstice?
Yes, indeed. Of course, Christians believe it's when Christ was born. There is historical evidence to suggest that it wasn't that time at all. But this time of the year has been adopted. And if we look at modern emergent spiritual trends like Wicca, nature worship, shamanism, paganism of one sort or another, these all feature the solstices on the 21st of December and 21st of June, as well as the spring and autumn equinoxes in March and September as being pivotal points of the year. But they also associate special times with the full moon as well. So there are a number of points in the year where you can say that life is being reborn again. Previous cycle has died, the old month has gone, the old week has gone, and we're getting into something new. But our ancients knew that this was a special time. There were special energies prevailing here. And that's why they always celebrated in different fashions at this time of year.
Is it because of the darkness and you've got all of what looks like a death? Is it because of the light coming from the darkness that's synonymous to, well, like they say, you don't need the text. You can just look at nature and you can find out all of these ageless teachings. The symbolism is there in nature. Is it because of the darkness and the light, or the rebirth of spring, new life? Can you expand a little bit about what we can learn, like with our own trials and tribulations and rebirth with the winter solstice, please?
Well, indeed, we celebrate the new year on January the 1st, as many people around the world now do. The Chinese obviously have their own new year. But this is the time when the old year ends because it's exhausted. The days are at their shortest points and light has to come in again. I think this period of darkness, when certainly in England, we get only about 5.5 hours of daylight if we're lucky. So it's like living in perpetual darkness. Of course, if you live in Iceland or Sweden or somewhere, you'll get almost perpetual darkness, particularly if you're up near the Arctic Circle. So it is this time when the world appears to stop, when even the planets appear to go backwards. And this is a time for reflection. What did I do well? What did I not do well? What mistakes did I make, etc., etc. This is a time for reassessment and also planning for the year ahead. And this is something that I think our ancestors found completely instinctive to their nature, especially because they were more connected to nature than we are. They gazed up into the heavens and saw the stars. We can't see the stars because there's so much light pollution. So they were very, very connected. And I think this is what we as human beings need to do again, is to reconnect with those natural forces, with the skies, with the seasons, with nature itself.
And with each other. We must realize as we see these cycles, last week's episode was a banger of an episode. It was all about the cycles, the cyclical nature of the cosmos and man, all of that. And as you were talking about this year, you have the beautiful, vivifying colors of spring, you have the warmth of summer, and then you have the quiet settling of the fall. And then we go into winter where the days get short. It's so much like a normal human life. And then you have the reassessment, and then we do our resolutions. That's why we probably, where that came from is in this lifetime, this coming year, I'm going to do this differently, or I have learned this as we move forward. Yes, we must work in harmony with nature. This is a very sacred time, and we're right in the thick of it. And thank you for spending your Christmas with us. We also wanted to touch on reincarnation, which of course we're talking about as we go around the year. Reincarnation is absolutely essential to these ancient teachings. And the proof of reincarnation, I wanted to touch with you, Tim. I'm sure you're familiar with this work, is Ian Stevenson, Dr. Ian Stevenson, and his work at the University of Virginia's Division of Perpetual Studies. He's done a whole bunch. There's so many videos on TikTok all the time of these children coming in and they say, I remember when I was your mom. And that was before when I had a different, dad, blah, blah, blah. These kids, they're coming through. Everybody's recording these. So much proof of reincarnation. And also, I wanted to talk about the birthmarks as well as possible wounds from previous incarnations. So let's start there. These proofs of reincarnation, are they really proof or are we imagining things?
Well, Ian Stevenson did a lot of work for more than 40 years. He was one of the pioneers in this kind of operation. And his work was centered not exclusively, but he did a lot of work in India. And often these children would tell their parents from the age of 2 or 3, oh, yeah, you're not my mother. My mother now lives in a village called so-and-so, and I have an uncle who's got a green van, and they have a little corner shop, and underneath the floor there, some rupees are buried. And they give all kinds of details of this. And many of these children have birthmarks or scars or what look like residues of wounds. And when Ian Stevenson checked these against the manner of death in which the child described, sometimes they were burnt in fire, sometimes they were shot, sometimes they were stabbed. When he checked these, he found that in a number of cases, police records or autopsy records of the person that the child claimed to have been in their past life checked out precisely and everything. Often these children, much against their parents' wishes often, were taken to the locations where they had spent their past life. And remarkable things happened. These children had an absolute recall of this. Many of the details that they described in terms of the buildings, the people involved, the vehicles, proved to be absolutely accurate. So you have to say this is beyond any chance of coincidence or randomness. There seems to be some definite dynamic going on here. And it's interesting that it's very young children who remember this, because by the time they get to 4, 5, or 6, these memories tend to have faded in most cases.
That's true. It's so wonderful that the parents are open-minded enough to listen. Some of the videos on TikTok and the other social medias, the parents are frightened by this, but less and less so. More and more of them are encouraging that, because I think it's beneficial and healthy if these children are coming through, not to poo-poo what they say, but to go ahead and communicate with them and allow them to talk and share their story. Because this wound, if they brought back my son has a really big one across his shoulder here. And I remember the moment he was placed on my chest, I looked down and I went, oh, totally. He's brought that through is what it felt like. It felt like that came with him. I think it's healthy to talk about that. But why do you think we forget at 6 or 7 or early childhood? Why do you think we forget? Is it because we're not close to it anymore, or we're being deprogrammed, or why?
I think it's a combination of things, and certainly that word deprogramming is a good one, because we are brought up in a particular way with a particular mindset. Also, by the time we get to 5 or 6, it's actually comparatively a long time since we were in our past life. Of course, these children are particularly interesting because it's said that young children who die quite young, below the ages of 10, say, tend to incarnate fairly quickly again because they're anxious to resume physical existence. But by the time they get to 5 or 6, there will be all sorts of conditioning against this sort of thing as well, unless they're brought up by parents who really do believe in reincarnation. But in most cases, that's not the situation that they find themselves in. And parents often feel rather embarrassed if a child says, "Oh, you're not my mother," understandably. And so there are difficulties here.
I would love it. I would absolutely love to know more about what Alex was previously. I would not take that personally. I'd love to know more of his story. And I think there's anybody who's watching this show this far or listening this far is obviously of that same mindset. And it is refreshing to see more and more people turning towards that. I wanted to talk about the birthmarks as well. Do you have any birthmarks, Tim, that you
Uh,
recognize as something previous?
no, no, I don't. No. All my scars were acquired
Um,
in this life.
Mine too. I tell you what, I'm probably going to bring those forward, I guess, or to the next time. But anyway, as far as the birthmarks, I've seen what they call the port wine stain birthmarks, which is almost looks like blood around the head. I think if we would just bring in psychology and medical science and start understanding that this lifetime doesn't have all the answers in it. What if we looked at esoteric science and applied it towards psychology and looked at these birthmarks and phobias? We've talked about phobias a little bit, but if we can't remember our past lives, but we have an absolute horrific phobia, surely that also would be coming through in a reincarnation memory.
Well, absolutely, because people have very common phobias like a fear of heights or a fear of enclosed spaces, claustrophobia. People have likes and dislikes in terms of environment, food, and that sort of thing. And these can all have been conditioned by past lives, no doubt. And one thing which is probably the clearest indicator of all is that given that the nature of disease is a result of the law of karma, given the fact that we make our current lives in our previous life, we may well be suffering from particular illnesses or medical conditions which are hangovers from other lives. And when they've done past life regressions, they've found that this is the case. In fact, the reason they started doing past life regressions was as a form of therapy. And it appears in many cases to have been extremely successful and cured people of long-standing conditions.
It's beautiful. Cause and effect. Cause and effect. The cycles, karma and reincarnation. That's what we talk about here on That Death Show. I think it's best for us to talk about it, to be open about it, to have an open mind, because so much can be learned from that. For example, if you have whatever current horror or difficulty you're going through, that is a cause. That is an effect to a previous cause. And I know some people don't like to hear that. I know I'd like to be justified that this shouldn't be happening. And I'm, not, this is unfair, but it is fair. And this is your current classroom. And there is more to the story. Take a look at it, take a step back, and understand that all of it is part of a gigantic, beautiful cycle that continues. It is endless, and you're on it, and it's going to be okay. I did want to talk about that. I have a question for you. If there is no time after we leave the physical world, Tim, what does esoteric science say about past, present, and future happening at the same time? What happens there? Why the cycles if there's no time?
Time is something which is necessary to apply on the physical plane. Because we have day and night, we have the seasons of the year as we've discussed, and without a sense of time, we wouldn't be able to operate. But it would seem, and occult science would seem to back this up as certain other spiritual traditions do, that really there isn't past, present, and future as we understand it. The past doesn't somehow flow like a river into the present and then flow off into the future. It's more a case of there being an eternal present. And this is very difficult for us to understand while we're in physical bodies. We have to talk about duration because our lives are conditioned by the fact that we're only going to live for so many years. And therefore, we have to have this sense of physical time here. When people have these cosmic and spiritual experiences, when we have dreams and near-death experiences, time doesn't exist in the same way. In those states of consciousness, time is much more as if everything that has happened and will happen is happening now in one present continuum. It's very difficult to explain, but this is what cosmic consciousness is all about, dissolving the sense of time.
Just endless amounts of information. The more I hear, the more I realize how little I know. That's why we are here, Tim and I, just dedicated students of the perennial philosophy, just trying to, we apply it and we try to share it because we see how important it is. It's not exclusive. It doesn't belong to one particular person or place. You don't have to pay anything for it. You can just look at nature, look at the cycles. You can go online, go to the libraries. You can find the texts. You can start here with us. It doesn't matter. It doesn't belong to anybody. It's available for all. These are instructions for living. And Tim, since it is Christmas, I'm sure people might be Scrooged out, but I did want to talk a little bit about, even though Charles Dickens was not a theosophist, or it wasn't specifically perennial philosophy, there's a lot of themes in there. Like, for example, Marley's chains that he has forged in life. I wondered if you had any thoughts on that very interesting, even though it is more paranormal, it has a beautiful ethical message, a Christmas Carol. Any thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, this character of Scrooge, for example, it's become a word in the English language and everything. And Scrooge is a kind of karmic tale in its own way, and eventually he becomes a good man at the end of the story and everything. So this is an important thing. I mean, Charles Dickens actually was born at a time when there was an occult revival beginning to take place in Europe and also a bit later in America. So he was tapped into a number of emerging ideas which were being put forward at that time. This is in the era just pre-theosophy, which emerged in 1875, 150 years ago. He was writing just slightly before this time, but nevertheless, he was tapping into what we might call the zeitgeist, when people were starting to think in different ways about things, not just dominated by the way the church wanted people to think.
Yes, absolutely. And I do want to clarify there really quick for those just listening. Theosophy is not the Theosophical Society. The Theosophical Society came in right after Dickens, but Theosophy is ageless, as old as time itself, because I do get some crap. People will give me crap on here and say, those books were only written, 130 years ago. Yes, a collection was. A huge collection came through at the end of the 1800s. But this stuff that we're talking about here isn't just that collection. This is timeless and goes all the way back through the philosophers, the Alexandrian philosophers, all the way back to ancient Egypt and beyond, before time was even kept. So theosophy is as old as time itself. And also you can see how Scrooge, once he turns things around, he's dealing with the astral plane. He has visitors from another dimension coming in, which is fantastic. And also when he changes, the life around him changes. So in a way, it's a beautiful, perfect Christmas tale of overcoming your greed and selfishness, and do acts of kindness and compassion and make a difference. So there's a little message there. This is, again, a cycle. He's learning and the cycle continues. Why is it important? And how can we apply this in our daily lives? Why is it important to understand the law of karma and reincarnation, Tim?
Well, it's not just about metaphysical speculation. This stuff is really important because we are a product now of who we were in previous lives and the influences that we've had and the people we've met, etc., etc. So if we understand and believe in the law of reincarnation, it means we can start to positively create our next lives, perhaps not so much create them, but at least avoid some of the negative influences which may have come into this life and previous lives because we were ignorant that we were going to be born again at that point. So if we understand this, then it makes life completely different because we know it's an entirely creative process and that we are the masters of our own destiny. It's not somebody else who's dictating these things. We are self-scheduling beings, ultimately, and we choose which direction we're going to go in, or choose not to choose at all, but we still are architects of our own fate.
We are architects in all that we do, all that we think, all that we say. We are the creators of this life. We have no one else to blame. There is no one else to blame but ourselves. And it could have been a previous incarnation as this is balancing out here. What more perfect time than the winter solstice as the year goes to sleep and is getting ready to be born again? Time for self reflection, time for renewal, time for realignment. And remember, even during the darkest times, the light always returns. Every storm passes. So if you're going through something difficult right now, and we all are, everybody's going through something, remember that is cyclical too. So when things are dark, they may stay dark. It might seem forever, but the light will come. Is that not true, Tim?
Absolutely. And one of the important things here to remember when people are going through bad times, as each and every one of us does numerous times in our lives, it's not what happens to us, it's how we deal with that. And it's our mental attitude. By changing our mental attitude to ourselves, we change the world around us. And that might sound like a bold statement, but it's absolutely true. So we are creative beings. We're not here by chance. We're not here by some random process or accident. We are here by design. We are part of this ongoing project, and we can choose to participate in that if we want to.
I don't think there could possibly be a better soundbite. You always come out with them. That's perfect. And remember, you are this ever expanding consciousness. This all that is also created you as a part of it. You are a part of this. You are part of the whole thing. And we are so grateful that you are here. Thank you for being a part of our Christmas show. So what we're doing is we want to ask you really quick to be a part of the community, that Death Show community. Please like, subscribe, share, rate, review, comment if you can, and help us get the word out there. Remember, it's just Tim and I working everything to the bone to get these ageless teachings out there into the world. It is comforting, though. I do see other channels coming in with the AI and the voiceovers. They're talking about this stuff too. So it isn't just us. There is a research. Something wonderful is happening out there, and we're grateful to be a part of it. We're kind of doing it old school because we're old school. So what we're going to do is next week, really quick before we talk about that, I want you to, if you do get a chance to, please pop over to our YouTube channel and check out Tim's latest film. He's always busy making new ones, but the one that came out in summer is called The Myth of Death. It is the most comforting film about death I have ever seen. It's the reason we're sitting in these chairs today. It's free to watch, and it's smashing it out there at film festivals. You can also check out his book, Everyone's Book of the Dead, at firewheelbooks.co.uk. And since it is Christmas, we're still going to show up on New Year's. So coming up next week, we're going to be talking about, why not, death cults, the Nazis, Jim Jones, and all that stuff. It's going to be a very, very juicy episode looking into the ignorance of humanity and hope for the future, believe it or not. Tim, do you have any final thoughts?
Well, only to say that I think one of the things that's going to happen in years to come, and we're seeing this now, more and more people believe in rebirth of some kind or another. I think we're seeing the basis of a new kind of spirituality emerging. And this is going to be based on the mystery schools of the past, because central to that was reincarnation, the role of the soul, that we are soul-infused entities, and that death is just another day at the office. So this is what's coming. This is what we have to look forward to.
That was fucking brilliant. He's not tiny, but he is Tim. Tim, take it away.
Merry Christmas, everybody, and have a Happy New Year.
Thank you. We'll see you next year. Death comes to us all, but death is not a tragedy. Everyone's Book of the Dead by Tim Wyatt reveals a whole new perspective on what lies beyond this earthly life. The Egyptians have a Book of the Dead. The Tibetans have a Book of the Dead. Shouldn't you have one too? This captivating, richly illustrated book explores the mystery of death by examining it from every angle, sharing the ageless esoteric teachings on karma, reincarnation, and after-death states, as well as examining death and dying in different cultures, religions, and spiritual traditions. Death is not fatal, final, or permanent, but simply a transitional doorway to a new beginning. Get your copy of Everyone's Book of the Dead today at firewheelbooks.co.uk.